Picture this: a pristine beach in the Maldives, crystal waters, sunset ceremony, a billionaire CEO about to marry the woman of his dreams in front of the global elite. Then someone stands up during the vows. Not a jealous ex, not an angry business rival. His wife, the one he's still legally married to, the one he invited as the entertainment. What do you do when you're invited to your husband's secret wedding? Not as a guest, as the artist hired to make it beautiful. This is a story of Olivia Carmichael and the day she turned betrayal into the most powerful statement of her life. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, let me ask you something. Have you ever discovered betrayal so bold, so audacious, that you couldn't believe someone actually had the nerve to pull it off? The kind of deception that's almost impressive in its sheer arrogance? Now imagine the person who betrayed you assumed you were too broken, too insignificant, too defeated to fight back. What would you do? Drop a comment about a time someone underestimated your strength. And stick around, because Olivia's response is a masterclass in dignity and power. Andrew Carmichael was the kind of man who'd built an empire before his 40th birthday. Self-made billionaire, CEO of a multinational tech firm, the type who appeared on magazine covers with headlines about disruption and innovation and the future of business. He controlled everything in his world with ruthless precision. Board meetings, market strategies, public image, every detail managed, every outcome calculated, except his marriage. Olivia had been a talented local artist when they met. Intelligent, creative, with a quiet strength that had initially intrigued him. Their wedding 12 years ago had been genuine, or at least she believed it was. But as Andrew's empire grew, their relationship withered. Long absences, endless business trips, and eventually the affairs he thought he was hiding. She wasn't blind. She knew, but she'd built a life too. Her art, her studio, her own growing reputation in the local gallery scene. She'd survived his neglect by creating something beautiful from the loneliness. What she didn't know was just how little he thought of her, how completely he dismissed her as irrelevant to his glittering world. She was about to find out. Her name was Vanessa Thorne, and she was everything Andrew thought he wanted. A socialite who moved through elite circles with practiced grace, turning heads at charity galas and investment conferences. Beautiful in that high-maintenance way that required professional stylists and personal trainers. Ambitious in a manner that matched his own ruthless climb. They'd met at a fundraiser in Manhattan. She'd laughed at his jokes, understood his references to market dynamics and corporate strategy, looked perfect on his arm in photographs that would appear in business journals. The affair began with the inevitability of two people who valued appearances above all else. Andrew justified it easily. Olivia didn't understand his world anymore. She was too quiet, too content with her small art studio and local exhibitions. Vanessa understood power. She fit the lifestyle he'd built. She was the partner a man of his status deserved. The guilt he might have felt was overwhelmed by entitlement. He'd earned this. He'd built this empire from nothing. Why shouldn't he have exactly what he wanted? Divorce would be messy, expensive, public. It would require acknowledging failure, dividing assets, enduring scrutiny. Andrew Carmichael didn't do messy, so he decided on a different approach, one that, in his mind, was simply more efficient. The plan formed over champagne in Vanessa's penthouse apartment, a destination wedding, somewhere remote and exclusive, the Maldives, a private island resort that catered to the ultra-wealthy who valued discretion above all else. Andrew would handle everything. The guest list would be carefully curated. Business associates who wouldn't ask uncomfortable questions, social climbers too dazzled by the invitation to think critically, international contacts who didn't know about Olivia. Invitations went out discreetly. Exclusive business retreat and celebration. Vague enough to avoid specifics. Elite enough to ensure attendance. Then Vanessa had a thought. We need entertainment. Something sophisticated. What about art? Didn't you mention what was her name? Olivia? That artist. Andrew paused, considering. Olivia, his wife, who he'd barely spoken to in months beyond logistical necessities about the house they still technically shared. The calculation happened quickly in his mind. She didn't travel in his circles anymore. She wouldn't recognize half the guests. If he framed it as a professional opportunity, an exclusive showcase for her work, she'd probably be grateful for the exposure. The audacity of it didn't register as audacity to him. It was simply problem-solving. He needed entertainment. She was an artist. Why not make use of a resource? The invitation was drafted on elegant cardstock. Formal, professional. Ms. Olivia Carmichael, you are cordially invited to showcase your acclaimed artwork at an exclusive island event in the Maldives. Your presence as a celebrated artist would honor this gathering of distinguished guests. No mention of a wedding. No mention of him, really. Just an opportunity for her art. Andrew's assumption was absolute. Olivia was too broken by years and neglect to suspect anything. Too grateful for scraps of recognition to question the details. Too insignificant in his world to matter. He'd always underestimated her. It was about to become the most expensive mistake of his life. The envelope arrived at Olivia's studio on a Tuesday afternoon. Heavy paper. Expensive printing. She opened it while standing at her easel. Paint still wet on her current piece. A swirling abstract in blues and grays that captured something about isolation in crowds. She read the invitation once. Then again. An exclusive event in the Maldives. Showcase her artwork. Distinguished guests. All expenses paid. Her first reaction was confusion. Andrew had never promoted her work. In 12 years of marriage, he'd attended maybe 3 of her exhibitions, and those grudgingly. Why would he suddenly want her art featured at one of his business events? Then again, it didn't say it was his event. Maybe someone else had recommended her work. Maybe her reputation had grown beyond the local scene without her realizing it. She should be excited. This was exactly the kind of opportunity that could launch an artist into international recognition. So why did something feel off? Still, she accepted. Her art deserved to be seen. She worked too hard to let vague unease stop her from seizing this chance. The preparations consumed 2 weeks. Selecting pieces that would travel well. Planning the exhibition layout. Choosing works that represented her evolution as an artist. From hopeful early pieces to more complex, emotionally layered recent work. A friend who moved in Andrew's social circles stopped by the studio. Maldives, huh? Big opportunity. Have you heard about this event? Olivia asked casually. Her friend hesitated. What kind of event did they say it was? That hesitation, that tiny pause, it planted a seed. Have you ever had that moment where everything suddenly makes horrible, perfect sense? Where all the small oddities you've been ignoring suddenly arrange themselves into an undeniable truth? That's where Olivia was about to land. Hit that like button if you've ever had a betrayal hit you all at once. Olivia started researching. Social media. Carefully filtered through privacy settings. Still leaked information if you knew where to look. Vanessa Thorne's Instagram, public for her influencer brand, had recently gone cryptic. Posts about paradise and forever and the most magical day of my life with countdown timers. A simple Google search, Andrew Carmichael Maldives. Nothing official, but cached wedding planning websites. Deleted posts on luxury wedding forums asking about the best resorts for intimate destination ceremonies. Then the phone call that shattered everything. A mutual acquaintance. Someone from periphery of Andrew's world who didn't know that Olivia didn't know. I'm so glad you'll be there. It's wonderful that you're part of the celebration despite everything. Very mature of you. Part of what celebration? A long, horrible pause. The wedding? Andrew and Vanessa's wedding? You're doing the art installation, right? Olivia's studio seemed to tilt. The wedding. Andrew's wedding. To someone else. While he was still married to her. And he'd invited her. As decoration. As the artist hired to make his betrayal beautiful. The sheer audacity stole her breath. He'd assumed she was so beaten down, so insignificant, that she wouldn't even realize what she was being invited to. He thought she'd show up, display her art, and never understand she was witnessing her own replacement. The assumption that she was too small to matter, too broken to fight, too irrelevant to pose a threat. Olivia stood in her studio, surrounded by 12 years of work that sustained her through his neglect, and felt something shift. Not breaking. She'd done enough breaking. Something else. Something that felt like steel forming in her spine. She was going to the Maldives. She was going to that wedding. But not as the defeated woman Andrew expected. Not as decoration for his new beginning. She was going to reclaim her story. On her terms. The Maldives lived up to their reputation. Turquoise waters, so clear you could see fish swimming 30 feet below. White sand beaches. Palm trees, swaying in warm breezes. The private island resort was paradise engineered for the ultra-wealthy. Villas on stilts over the ocean. Infinity pools. Staff who anticipated needs before guests voiced them. Olivia arrived 3 days before the ceremony. Plenty of time to set up her exhibition. Plenty of time to observe. Other guests trickled in. Tech billionaires. European aristocrats. Social media influencers who'd cultivated proximity to wealth. Investment bankers. Fashion designers. The kind of people who jetted to island paradises without thinking about the cost. Her exhibition space was stunning. A pristine white pavilion overlooking the ocean. Open walls letting the breeze. Perfect natural lighting for her work. She arranged her pieces with deliberate care. Each one told part of her story, though the guests wouldn't understand that yet. Then Andrew arrived, Vanessa on his arm. Designer sunglasses. Linen suits that cost more than most people's cars. Smiles that looked perfect but felt hollow. He saw Olivia and froze. Actually froze mid-step. What are you doing here? She smiled calmly. You invited me to showcase my work. She watched him try to remember. Watched the realization dawn that he'd gotten so tangled in his own deceptions he'd forgotten the details. His face went through several expressions: shock, panic, calculation. Vanessa looked between them, confused. Andrew? Who is this? I'm Olivia, she said pleasantly. Andrew's wife. Ex-wife. Andrew interjected quickly. No, Olivia corrected. Still calm, still pleasant. We're not divorced. Still very much married, actually. The first crack appeared in Andrew's perfect plan. Vanessa's expression shifted from confusion to something harder. You told me you were divorced. It's complicated, Andrew muttered, already trying to manage the situation, already calculating how to contain this. But Olivia wasn't interested in being contained anymore. The days before the wedding were interesting. Olivia set up her exhibition, while guests explored the island. Her work drew attention. Powerful pieces that spoke of identity and transformation, resilience and rebirth. People approached her, asking about her inspiration, complimenting her technique. They didn't know they were looking at the visual diary of a woman whose husband was about to commit bigamy 30 feet away. The irony wasn't lost on Olivia. These people, these glittering elite, were admiring her art while preparing to celebrate her betrayal. They were kind to her face while planning to witness her replacement. Some knew the truth. Some didn't. The ones who knew looked uncomfortable when they realized she was actually present. The ones who didn't know treated her with genuine warmth, not realizing complexity of the situation. Andrew tried to approach her once, his voice low and urgent. Olivia, this doesn't have to be dramatic. Just do your exhibition and leave before the ceremony. I'll make sure the divorce settlement is generous. She looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered when he'd become this stranger, when had ambition curdled into cruelty, when had success made him think other people were just props in his story. I wouldn't miss this for the world, Andrew. Something in her tone made him uneasy. She wasn't crying, wasn't begging, wasn't making scenes. She was calm, composed, almost serene. That scared him more than tears would have. Vanessa grew increasingly jealous as the days passed. Guests were more interested in Olivia's art than in the wedding preparations, more interested in the quiet artist than the bride-to-be. The spotlight Vanessa had expected was being stolen by the woman she was supposed to be replacing. Olivia's art told stories Andrew didn't want told, about loneliness and luxury, about identity lost and reclaimed, about the difference between being seen and being displayed. The stage was set. The guests were assembled. Paradise waited. And Olivia was ready. The wedding was scheduled for sunset. The beach had been transformed into something from a luxury magazine. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an arch covered in orchids and jasmine, a pathway lined with candles waiting to be lit as the sun descended. The guests assembled in their designer clothes. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played something elegant and meaningless. The ocean provided a soundtrack of gentle waves. Vanessa looked stunning in a dress that probably cost what Olivia earned in a year. Andrew stood at the altar in a custom suit, his expression confident. This was his moment. Everything arranged to his specifications. Everything under control. Olivia sat in the back row. Simple dress. Minimal jewelry. Completely composed. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered today in this paradise to witness the union of Andrew and Vanessa. Traditional words. Declarations about love and commitment. Andrew's vows about finding his soulmate, about the future they build together, about eternal devotion. Olivia almost laughed at the irony. He was using the same words he'd said to her 12 years ago. Then came the moment. The officiant traditional question. If anyone has reason these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. It's usually rhetorical, a formality. No one actually objects. Olivia stood, not dramatically, not with a shout or a scene, just quietly, calmly stood up, every head turned. I have something to say. This is the moment everything changes, not just for Andrew and Vanessa, but for everyone watching who's ever been underestimated. If you're on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. You won't want to miss how this ends. Olivia's voice was steady, clear. She wasn't shouting. She didn't need to. I was invited here as an artist. I thought I was coming to showcase my work, to be part of something beautiful. And, in a way, I suppose I am. The guests murmured. Andrew's face had gone white. What I didn't realize until I arrived was that this event, this wedding, features my husband. Yes, my husband. Andrew Carmichael is still legally married to me. We are not divorced. He is attempting to commit bigamy in front of all of you. The murmurs became gasps. Head swiveled toward Andrew, whose expression had frozen somewhere between rage and panic. Vanessa turned to stare at him. You said you were divorced. She's lying. Andrew tried, but his voice lacked conviction. I have our marriage certificate, Olivia said calmly. Filed with the state. Still valid. Never dissolved. I also have the invitation Andrew sent me, asking me to provide art for this event. I don't think he realized I'd figure out what this event actually was. She gestured toward her exhibition, visible through the pavilion. My art tells stories. Stories about betrayal, about identity, about what happens when people treat you like you're too small to matter. I thought they were abstract, but standing here, I realize they're incredibly literal. Some guests looked uncomfortable. Others looked fascinated. A few were already pulling out phones. I came here because I wanted to see if Andrew really had the audacity to go through with this. And he did. He invited his wife to his wedding, as the entertainment, because he assumed I was too broken to realize what was happening. She turned to look directly at Andrew. You were wrong. The silence was profound. Even the ocean seemed quiet. I'm not here to stop this wedding. Honestly, Vanessa, you're welcome to him. But I wanted everyone here to know the truth about the man you're celebrating. The man who treats people as disposable when they stop serving his image. The man who thought he was so clever that he could manage every detail, even the art installation, without consequences. Olivia's smile was small but genuine. I hope you all enjoy the reception. As for me, I've said what I came to say. She walked down the aisle, not running, not hurrying, walking with her head high, her dignity intact, while chaos erupted behind her. The wedding didn't continue. How could it? The carefully constructed illusion had shattered. Vanessa confronted Andrew right there on the beach, her voice rising over the string quartet. You're still married. You lied to me about being divorced. Andrew tried to salvage something. It's a technicality. The marriage was over. A technicality? You were going to make me an accidental accessory to bigamy. Guests were leaving. Not quietly. Social media erupted. Posts, tweets, Instagram stories. You won't believe what just happened at this billionaire's wedding. Someone had filmed Olivia's revelation. It would be viral within hours. The carefully curated guest list turned into Andrew's worst nightmare. These people, influencers, business contacts, social climbers, they all had platforms. They all had followers. And they'd all just witnessed the most dramatic wedding implosion in recent memory. Business partners started calling. Board members demanded explanations. This shows a fundamental lack of judgment. Andrew, ethics violations, character questions. His reputation, which he'd spent decades carefully constructing, began crumbling in real time. The billionaire who couldn't even handle his personal life honestly. How could anyone trust him with their investments? Legal consequences mounted. Attempted bigamy. Fraud in the wedding arrangements. The divorce Olivia filed immediately would be spectacular and heavily in her favor given his attempted deception. The financial hit was severe. Not just a divorce settlement, but the business fallout, investors pulling out, partnerships dissolving, his company's stock dropping as the story spread. But worse than the money was a loss of something Andrew valued more, respect. The elite circles that had welcomed him now whispered behind his back. He'd been exposed as a fool, and in those circles, foolishness was unforgivable. Olivia left the island on the next flight out. Her phone was exploding. Texts of support from friends, calls from strangers who'd seen the viral videos, messages from people saying they'd gone through similar betrayals and her courage had inspired them. Her art exhibition, documented in dozens of social media posts before the revelation, gained international attention. Galleries reached out. Museums wanted to feature her work. Collectors who'd never heard her name were suddenly interested. The story transformed her from local artist to symbol of dignity in the face of betrayal. Interviews, speaking engagements, requests for her to talk about reclaiming your narrative, about refusing to be diminished, about the power of truth. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly and concluded heavily in her favor. Andrew's attempted bigamy and documented deception gave her legal team everything they needed. She walked away with financial security that would let her create art on her own terms forever. But more than money, she gained something else. Freedom. Freedom from a marriage that had been dead for years. Freedom from trying to be small enough to fit in Andrew's world. Freedom to build a life authentic to who she actually was. Her art flourished. The pieces she created during her loneliest years now sold for significant sums. The new work she created, vibrant, powerful, unapologetic, drew even more attention. Andrew's empire recovered eventually. Money has a way of insulating people from consequences, but his reputation never fully healed. He was always the billionaire who tried to commit bigamy at his own wedding and got caught by his wife. Vanessa disappeared from his life immediately. She had her own reputation to rebuild. The glamorous socialite who'd been fooled wasn't a good look. Olivia built a life surrounded by genuine people, fellow artists who understood her work, friends who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide. Eventually, a partner who treated her as an equal. The irony wasn't lost on her. Andrew's ultimate betrayal had freed her to become more successful, more fulfilled, more genuinely herself than she'd ever been in their marriage. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Sometimes betrayal is actually a gift wrapped in pain. And sometimes the person who dismissed you as irrelevant becomes irrelevant themselves. So, let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they had all the power? Someone who assumed you were too small, too broken, too insignificant to fight back? Share your story in the comments. Tell us about a time you reclaimed your dignity or witnessed someone else do it. Let's celebrate the Olivias of the world, the people who refuse to stay small in someone else's story. If this moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Subscribe to Earthly Tales because we're here to tell stories that remind you of your own strength. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might change your perspective. Here's the lesson. Wealth doesn't equal wisdom. Power doesn't equal character. And control is an illusion. You can't control people. Only manipulate them until they realize what you're doing. Andrew Carmichael thought he'd arranged everything perfectly. He'd managed every detail, controlled every variable, planned for every contingency. Except one. He'd underestimated the woman he'd dismissed as irrelevant. True power doesn't come from money or status or carefully curated images. It comes from integrity, from courage, from the willingness to stand up and speak truth even when it costs you something. Olivia could have stayed silent, could have let the wedding happen and dealt with a divorce quietly, could have accepted being small in Andrew's story. Instead, she reclaimed her narrative. She refused to be a prop in someone else's betrayal. And in doing so, she showed everyone watching what real strength looks like. Not revenge, not cruelty, just truth, spoken calmly with dignity intact. Andrew thought he controlled everything. But the one thing he couldn't control was Olivia's decision to stand up, speak her truth, and walk away stronger than she'd ever been. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's refusing to stay small. It's reclaiming your story. It's walking away with your head high while someone else's carefully constructed world crumbles behind you. This is Earthly Tales, reminding you that you're never too small to matter. You're never too broken to fight back. And you're never too powerless to reclaim your own story. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. They're often the strongest of all.